Good morning, dear colleagues. We'll start our work. In fact, we will see now the roundtable Speak Global, Go Global, the foreign language and the system of secondary school, and the moderator will be People's Deputy Lilia Grinevich, and she will tell us about the discussion, what are the points of discussion, and she will give the floor to our participants, so the floor is yours. Good morning, dear colleagues. I think that when we are talking about the educational reform, this round table is devoted to one of the most important aspects of this educational reform in Ukraine, and this aspect coincides with the initiative within the framework of the National Council for Reforms. And the initiative is that we have to provide our citizens with an adequate level of learning and knowing the English language. Why? I think that everybody here understands very well why we need this, and I should not and will not persuade this audience. However, to start our discussion, I'd like to give the floor to Mustafa Nayem, because it is he who is the engine of this idea, and I believe that we have all the potential to realize it with our international partners and all the stakeholders and people who want and are sure that Ukraine should integrate into European space. So Mustafa, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. It's too early to applaud. We'll have a presentation. I'd like to outline a framework of what we will be talking about, but mostly I'm interested in hearing from you. So please launch the presentation. This is the initiative that we have developed with the representatives of the National Council of Reforms, and the matter is that all the first official actors gathered there. Okay, I'll talk slower. In the first turn, these are representatives of ministries, the president who heads the council, speakers, and those departments of the administration of the president who are responsible for reforms. We've called this initiative the National Program of Learning and Popularizing in Foreign Languages, as we are talking not only about English, we just focus on the English language, because this is one of the biggest problems. We proceeded from the fact that the English language and other European languages are the indicators that are there in our documents, like Strategy 2020 and the Association Agreement. But the major thing is that this is the language that is in the basis of all European documents. You know that in recommendations of the European Union there's a clause that English is one of the major languages, and in other recommendations issued by the Council of Europe. But why have we focused on the English language? We understand that we should we decided to start with English as a key language, because at the moment most of the news, including the science sphere and other spheres, most of them are in English. More than 80% of scientific publications are published in English, and most of the international bodies have English as their official language, and this is the language of diplomacy. This is the language that we use to talk to the world, but we have a problem that people who hold power in Ukraine do not always know English. We'll talk about this later. We know that there's a rating measuring the level of the knowledge of English in different countries, and we are now occupying slot 44. We want within 6 years to rise to slot 30 in 2020, and we want to increase the number of people who speak English freely from 7 to 20%. Our major aim now is that people realize the necessity to learn English. We talk to many people, many know that it's good to know the English language, but not everyone understands that this is a factor of competitiveness of the country, and every person who know the English. We've broken our initiative into 4 directions. First is popularizing the English language. We understand that if there's no demand in learning English, then we won't go further. We can increase the number of lessons and teachers, but if they don't have a necessity, you know that even the resource that there is in the country, they don't use it. The popularization of the English language as a necessary resource is very important now. Second important factor is state bodies. Not more than 20% of state officials, public servants, know the English language. We think this is unacceptable when we have signed the association agreement, and I know that most of the documents in English are translated into Ukrainian, then they are translated back into English to compare the documents. I don't think this is right. And recently we had a conference in one of the regions where the new governor was appointed, and during talking to Americans, the representative of the administration asked to translate into Russian because no one understood English. So we plan to raise a criterion for new state officials so that they all know the English language, at least heads of departments or people who are in this or that class of and category of public servant, they should know the English language. The third point is most sensitive for me, the language in the system of education, because of course we can rework a lot and reform a lot what concerns public service, but if children do not know English, we won't go much further. So for us, the main thing now is to create necessary conditions so that we evaluate, assess the knowledge in an adequate way, and the system of education is reformed so that we speak on equal terms, an equal basis with foreigners. And again, the fourth point, the fourth block, that this is an ambitious aim. We cannot learn the English if we do not talk to native speakers. And in many countries that we studied, there was a program that when they involved native speakers to their countries, in Bangladesh and Georgia and other countries, we have a numerous diaspora, and not all of them want to get Ukrainian citizenship, but they can come here, and there should be a great movement and contribution so that children, not only in big cities, but in district centers and even lower level, understand and speak English. If we tried to make this program state-run, well, we all know how the state works. On the other hand, you cannot do this without the state help. We took the path of multi-stakeholder initiative when we involve everyone and every entity in the country that want to develop the knowledge of the English language. And the guarantors of this program are the President and the Cabinet of Ministers headed by Arseniy Yatsenyuk. And the main thing is that our international partners who could pressurize our government so that the program does not stop if there are changes in our country. All these, we call this board guarantee, and they give authority to the executive committee, which does not lead or manage. They are just directing the initiatives that are within the framework of this program, and the major stakeholders should be the civil society and foreign partners, the system of education, the Ministry of Education, and I think it is very important to understand that people who would think about money, we would not like to bring this money out of the framework of the National Council for Reforms. There's a structure created by EBRD, and they will transparently finance this work. Over the 18 months, we want to change the system of education. I'm very thankful to Ms. Grinevich, because without you and the Minister of Education, we wouldn't have even started. I think that you have more ideas and understand how to do this. The only thing that we suggested from the very start is to raise the quality of teachers and find the measurement, the instrument by which we can measure the quality, because at the moment the situation with language that we have, for instance, in Lviv or Donetsk, do not correlate at all. We also want to plan 2016, which we proclaimed the year of the English language. We want to launch a great number of events on popularizing the language and on training the teachers, and also on introducing it to people who are state officials. We want, first of all, the guarantors to sign a charter saying that they aim at popularizing the English language, and will do everything possible so that the state bodies and other stakeholders join in the program. This presentation will be sent out, and of course you have it in your handouts. You can look in more detail. So these are the major stakeholders now: the Ministry of Education, embassies, public organizations, citizens, international organizations, and businesses. Now we're talking to a lot of partners who are here and who are not here, who couldn't come, and I hope that you will have an opportunity to discuss and suggest your own idea. We talked to British Council specifically, and to the Embassy of the US, who helped us with ideas and how to realize it. I am through now. But I wanted to say that I am not just a new person in education, I just know little about it. So we hope very, very much for your ideas, and our main task is to help you to realize this idea. We'll do everything possible. You can address us with any initiative. After this event, we will send out the recommendations, and then we will pinpointedly work with everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Nayem, for presentation of the context, so that we understand the whole idea. Today, our roundtable will be focused on the topic of secondary education. What are the tasks for the secondary education? Because that's the most productive time for learning foreign language. I would like to, before I make my presentation, I would like to say a few words thanking to everyone who came to this round table. We see the partners who for many years have been improving English language teaching in Ukraine. We invited the representatives of the Ministry of Science and Education, the representatives of the National Academy of Sciences, teachers of English, directors of schools, rectors of the post-diploma educational institutions, authors of the English language textbooks, and also I would like to emphasize that we have the representatives of the Embassy of the US, Canada, British Council, Peace Corps of the USA, the representatives of British publishing houses, all these people who have been supporting us all the time. But now we need high quality breakthrough in improving of teaching English in the system of secondary education. We are limited in time. Our roundtable will last for an hour and a half. We decided to do the following. We developed the recommendations of the roundtable. Each one of you has the recommendations. As we have very limited time for discussions, up to 3 minutes for each person. Please refer to the recommendations. We will send the recommendations to the government and to all other participants of the process of this big ambitious project. It would be useful if in your presentations you will say, so please clarify this or that in your recommendations. Then the result of the roundtable will be a specific document, and I hope that this will be the document which will be executed by all the partners of the project. So, for us, it's clear, and Mustafa has correctly presented all the arguments and motivations why this project, this draft was developed by the National Council on Reforms. And here there's a preliminary announcement that 2016 will be called the Year of English Language in Education. This should become the year of good quality decisions. Talking about operationalization of the process, about how to achieve this objective, it has at least 4 components. First of all, in our system of secondary education compared to European system, where English language is not the native language, it's the second language, as a rule, we see very few hours for language teaching. Most of Ukrainian children who study in the secondary schools, they have just only 2 hours a day. In specialized schools, they have 5 hours. In senior classes, up to 9 to 10 hours of the language. In our average school, in the 11th grade, the student has just 3 hours. That means that there will be no success in achieving certain level of language. But now I would like to again remind that we are now working on the law on education, and next week the reform in educational sector will be considered by the Cabinet of Ministers at their meeting. One of the indicators of achievements of the reform should be that our children in regular secondary school could achieve the level of B1 of independent language user. That is one of the indicators of success of reform. In order for this to happen, we need to introduce amendments to the curriculum of a general secondary school, because that should be the mandatory subject. I would like to emphasize that, Mustafa has emphasized that again, that we are talking about European languages. We do have schools where they teach English, German or French, and English as the second foreign language, but the general trend is that 90% of students learn English, and because this is the language of communication in science, business, culture, education, first of all we need to direct our efforts towards English. I believe that such methods will then be expanded to other languages. The second part of the reform, you can add hours, but you have to have enough teachers of proper qualification. And now, despite this big work of the British Council, of some language schools that feel their social responsibility and who are training free of charge our teachers. Despite the fact that the Peace Corps has been in Ukraine for many years and we invite American teachers, but that's not enough for systemic change of the quality of teachers. And here we hope that there will be a very serious partnership programs. We will get involved the institutes of post-diploma education. They are everywhere in every region, and there is the planned advanced training which every teacher has to get every 5 years, and so the idea of this European project of advanced qualification, advanced training is to teach English to those teachers who will then be disseminating this knowledge. The third component of this system is textbooks. That's very complicated. We need a new modern Ukrainian English language textbooks. We have some of the new ones, but there are very few of them. Very often in Ukrainian school you can see the situation when the textbook which was printed for the money from the budget are sitting in the libraries, and the parents are buying foreign English language textbooks. But we need to have textbooks which will have our context, because we understand that the texts that the students have, they form their identity and cultural background, and that's also important. And the fourth component is undoubtedly the verifying the results of our work, the exam. We now have the system of external independent assessment in Ukraine, but unfortunately the English language exam, because of the problem of financing, because of technological problems, is reduced. There's no speaking and listening comprehension. I believe that these are the integral parts of the exam, and so we invite all the partners to come and help us so that we can develop such an exam which will be able to help us select children to the university, not just to the universities, but the one which will help us show what's the standard of knowledge of this child. Developing such Ukrainian exam which would correspond all the European recommendations on language education is another clear task of this reform. I don't want to take time during which it is important for us to hear you and your proposals and your recommendations. I believe that we now have the issues to discuss, these main 4 problems, and I would like to invite you to take the floor. In the beginning, allow me to give the floor to the representative of the Ministry of Education and Science, Oksana Kovalenko, who for many years has been working on this issue. She knows a lot about that, and Oksana will talk about recommendations, I hope. Thank you. Lilia?
Thank you for such detailed and professional approach to foreign language, and in this case the English language. I am very impressed with the depth of recommendations that we have got. The ministry understands that we should we should go to new approaches in learning and teaching the English language and the foreign languages in general, and it is the matter of our biggest concern during our conferences and meetings. Yes, since 2004 in Ukraine, the so-called B4 level is in action, in B1 in action. In Ukraine, officially, we've had the innovation approach in creating the learning and teaching programs, but in reality new approaches and new documents demand a new role from teachers, because the teacher used to be a transformer and transmitter of knowledge, but now the children want to get information from a teacher, and they want to know how, they want to learn how to learn. And here we face the problem of professional training and upgrading of skills of teachers, as not always teachers with a huge experience of teaching according to the old system are ready to accept new approaches, and that's why we asked the British Council for help, and we have prepared some programs of retraining and upgrading skills of teachers. And you also were right about textbooks, but we have the problem with learning programs as well, because the program that is they never designate 80 hours that should be there. And you know, the matter is that we have textbooks, we have specialists who are able to introduce this program, but we still need a lot of goodwill to bring the case to its completion. Maybe the things will improve after our round table. We have a program which is called the School Teacher of the New Generation. This is very important, and specialists from all over Ukraine work on this program. It is very important for us to get legislative support for this program in order to introduce it. You know, we changed the approaches of teachers, which is much harder than to prepare teachers on the stage of pre-diploma preparation. Would be very good if we introduce this program in higher educational establishments even this year. Another issue that you touched upon, and the ministry is concerned here as well, is the formation of continuous education over the span of life. Many teachers go to seminars abroad, and they get different diplomas. However, they cannot get the confirmation or corroboration of their qualification, although there's a letter of recommendations sent out to different universities. Today, very important is the control and assessment, because this is probably the most painful issue. Why? Very important and very innovative and very positive step was the introduction of independent evaluation assessment in 2010. We were in euphoria then. We thought that we would get a feedback on our work, on the work of teachers, about designating the level, defining the level. However, we wanted to get the control of communicative process in general, but the existing practice does not give us an opportunity to get information about the level of preparation of the pupils, because part of the qualifications are not checked. And many experts, or almost all the experts who come to Ukraine, tell us about this. And this actually leads to the situation when teachers do not teach language to their students, but they just train them to go through some tests. If we talk about the raising of the quality of learning and teaching English, then we should pay attention to this as well. We need to diligently work for this. It is very important that our Ministry for Education and Science is open to changes. We heard this, but I would ask you to give us a clear-cut message from the start of the academic year, how the number of lessons that you have of foreign languages in secondary school is changing. Today, a group works on this issue. We do understand that this is extremely important, and you know that there's a group that is working on the law of Ukraine on education. We're open to changes, and we are ready to introduce more hours for foreign language. Dear colleagues, I invite you to discussion. You're going to speak for 3 minutes or so. We need Ukrainian teachers and we need native speakers who will be teaching us. I invite to speak our partner who's been working for a lot of time about this, native speakers as teachers of English in Ukraine. Mr. Dan Roberts, the head of
I guess I will begin the year of the English language now. The Peace Corps, which has had really a wonderful partnership in Ukraine for over 20 years with more than 2,500 volunteers. And I think many of you are aware that the comparative advantage that Peace Corps brings is native speakers. And native speakers, and we often say that Peace Corps volunteers serve at the last mile. You find Peace Corps volunteers where you may not find any other foreigner. As recently as 3 months ago, I'm not sure that Tamara and I could have even participated in this roundtable because we weren't sure that we would have Peace Corps volunteers. And we're very thrilled to be able to say that Peace Corps has returned to Ukraine and that Peace Corps has a very proactive and aggressive approach to increasing the number of volunteers. And so it's a wonderful coincidence with the government's year of English that we will be there as your partners providing native English speakers. And the partnership with the Ministry of Education, which has also been very productive, we will take your lead. We will go where you tell us to go, and we will do our very best to match the skill level of our volunteers, which varies with the needs of the community. Sometimes a secondary school, sometimes a teacher training institute. But let me just assure you that all Peace Corps volunteers as native English speakers make a contribution to the objectives that the government is approaching for English language, whether they are working with youth programs, whether they're working in community service organizations or in the formal school system. And so it's a pleasure for Peace Corps to be able to be here at the table as a partner with other stakeholders, with the government of Ukraine, and we thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you very much. Шановні колеги,
Dear colleagues, I want to give the floor to a teacher of English, as we are now talking about upgrading skills and new opportunities for teachers, and in this aspect it is very important to listen to recommendations from a teacher, Natalia Zakonova. Oh, she's not here. Okay. Okay, she's probably upgrading her skills even now, but we do have many representatives here who can talk about teachers and who are themselves involved in teaching the English language. Just a moment. If I announce the teacher, I give the floor to Maryana Tryfan, who is a methodology worker at a Transcarpathian Institute for After Diploma Teachers Training Education. Hello, dear colleagues. I am not just a methodist of this institute. I am, first of all, a teacher of the English language, and I still work as an English teacher in Uzhgorod in a secondary school.
Таке, знаєте, і як вчителя, і як методиста.
So I see the situation from both sides. As I don't have much time, I focused on several points. You know, when I'm asked what we have to do so that all our pupils speak freely, I tell them you need to have all the teachers to speak fluent English. And proceeding from this, we have 1,197 teachers of English in our region, and probably 60% of them have never talked to a native speaker. I've been working with the Peace Corps since 2006. For many teachers, this is the only opportunity to listen to a native speaker. How can we talk about socio-cultural competence if a teacher has never been abroad? What about the nuances of the language? What about adequacy? So first of all, I would talk about the raising of the quality of teaching. We have to invite at least one volunteer to every institute, to every school with expanded teaching of the English language. This is point one. Point two, of course, the number of lessons at the upgrading skills module. You have mentioned already a very fine textbook, about 80 hours. We don't have this opportunity. We provide monitoring of interactive studies, a lot of interdisciplinary subjects that are being read in Ukrainian, and even when teachers come to upgrade their skills, they don't have such an opportunity. Today they are talking a lot about Methodists, whether they need them or not. I'd like to say that a Methodist should perform their only function to be an advisor, a consultant to a teacher, and to provide for a continuous link between the Ministry of Education to a teacher and vice versa. We cannot send every teacher abroad. This is a utopia, but British publishing houses and international organizations, and British publishing houses is not just expensive textbooks. This is quality trainings, new technologies, all the gamut of new things apart from textbooks. We have a experience in Transcarpathia where we have English language for repression camps, and we take the demands of the time into account, and we are flexible in involving teachers to these short-term trainings. We, for instance, take into account the certificate of a language school or training from a publishing house. We see this as learning number of lessons in a professional module. I also have to say what all the teachers asked me to say. If we talk about teaching kids to talk, we have to go back into the state summing up attestation, where one of the aspects was oral speech. And now the teacher has stopped to teach to speak. They all teach how to pass through different tests. And finally, I have a great desire. I want this new, beautiful initiative, you know, a vote with both hands, for people talking English. I just don't want it to become a new inspection for teachers, how soon, how fast people learn to speak English.
Yes, very correct remark. Esteemed colleagues, we do understand that this is a long-term task, and that task requires efforts for several years, and our result will be the result of getting a certain level by our children, by the majority of children. But nevertheless, I would like to give the floor to a person who is working with children, with teachers every day. And this is the director of the specialized school number 155, Georgy Kostylov.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Well, a very important opportunity for me to talk to you, everybody here, and just to present the ideas. Well, but I understand that there are 3 minutes, but I did plan 5 minutes, so 3 minutes I plan to give to the voices of the students. I want you to listen to what is happening, you know, actually in the classrooms in Kyiv schools. Okay, Department of Education knows very well, okay, about that. Відео, будь ласка, якщо можна.
Could you please show the video?
It's all about. It's not a showcase, it's just some very short samples. Just be careful.
From do you agree?
Louder, please.
Okay, good. Excellent.
On the other hand, plants which live in very humid conditions need to increase the amount of transpiration.
Okay, do you agree?
Yes. Humid, yes.
Okay, good.
So the number of stomata, yeah?
Most of the water vapor is lost through the stomata.
Students from Malta, do you agree?
It's false. So the first statement, boys, the first statement
That's
is
another
false.
lesson, it's chemistry
And
The air is mainly a mixture of two gases, nitrogen and oxygen.
well, I will repeat the answer so that you hear well. So the air is mainly a mixture of two gases, nitrogen and oxygen. Okay, then the next one, it's your turn. Boys?
You understand it's from Malta.
It's true. Read it out, please. Read it out.
The other component gases of the are carbon dioxide, water vapor, noble gases, pollutants.
Right, you are. Thank you. And then, Nika. Louder.
The composition of air varies from place to place. True.
It's true. Do you agree that the composition of air varies from place to place? Then it's your turn, please.
Just 1 minute more,
It's
okay?
argon,
Sorry.
right?
Just
you
1
are.
minute.
Thank you.
Students'
Then,
voices.
Aluna.
Burning fossil fuels contribute to the amount of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and oxides of nitrogen in the atmosphere. True.
It is true.
Patients' heart failures according to the severity of their symptoms. This consists of 4 classes, Class A being minor and Class D being the most severe.
Okay.
Second.
Here you can see my slide, and it is about the cancer of the heart. Well, to begin with, the cancer of the heart is a rare disease which is difficult to diagnose.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we can stop here meanwhile. Thank you. На жаль, звичайно, мене попросили, щоб ми зупинилися.
Sorry, I was asked to stop the video, but there are different things there. So here are the 3 minutes of a 5-year-long work on creating a unified or single educational space with European countries. Here we have a common education in chemistry with a gymnasium in Bonn, so not everything is so bad. We are practically part of a European process. And can you please switch the presentation on? So what are we talking about at the moment? By the way, thank you very much, the British Council, who paid effort to this, and great thanks to the Department of Education, who monitors us very closely, and you were at the seminars that we held this year. The challenges that we look at, new tasks of mastering the English language, I think that we have to reach C1. And all the teachers, my colleagues, won't say that I want too much, and God help us to manage B2. However, if we talk about flexible use of language in public life, education and work, then B2 does not provide for this. So we have to look at functionality of the language. And let's come back. In this case, the level of efficient, flexible use of the language is, in fact, C1. Now, icebreakers here should be the specialized schools. What are the tools? We first of all have to understand that the learning of the language has to be pragmatic. So the instrument should be CLIL, about which the British Council is talking at the moment. And again, great thanks to the Ministry of Education for new educational programs. When we talk not about learning, but we learn and study the history of arts. No, mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, the subjects that are in demand of on the international market of educational services in English. When we're talking about coordination, teacher to teacher, pupil to pupil, I've shown you that it does work directly with educational systems, teacher to teacher, pupil to pupil. Now nothing will happen. I understand when a teacher says, oh, this is a foreigner, they've said something in their mother tongue. Nothing will happen. You have to look at the level of communication teacher to teacher when they jointly prepare lessons. This is a common understanding of common approaches to teaching kids. Then, IT technologies, a principled and key moment. This is not as scary. Believe me, what you've seen is Skype, Adobe, and a computer here and a computer there, nothing else. The problem is partnership, to find a partner who does feel, who senses what you want. A lot of schools are just afraid of doing this. We have a competitive advantage. The specialists. I don't believe in outer independent testing. I do not believe in our universities. Well, sometime they will produce some specialists, and we've talked at many conferences. Thank you for a chance to say this. I've got ambiguous answers there, but we cannot expect the graduates who could be bilingual. What can you do? You should introduce the external independent testing for the graduates of teachers training colleges. By the way, a great many thanks to Mr. Likarchuk for external independent tests. Please know that you are being supported and you should proceed in this direction. About the school-based training, I'm sitting here with you, but there is a school-based training at our school. We don't wait for anyone. The next slide. I don't agree with on the matter of textbooks. They have to be paid for. I am impressed and inspired by our enthusiasts who write textbooks, but you cannot compete with Cambridge, Oxford, or Macmillan. This is a huge industry, and you don't have to. You just have to incorporate this. And the challenge of internet resources, a crazy amount of material that you have to work with, and I'm very grateful that the department has followed all these things. And the last slide, the management, the director has to be a expert in English language. They have to be a visionary, not a financial manager. About the autonomy of schools, so-called autonomy, I don't comment, I don't have enough time. And the local government of the Ministry of Education and Science, who reads in what way. Everything depends on a local specialist who puts a stamp on the teaching plan, schedule, curriculum. We now are introducing the learning of chemistry, studies of chemistry in English. And how can we break into groups the study of subjects in English, because as it is not called English language? And the last thing, for you to understand, we are able to compete. As of today, Malta has introduced into their diploma on the finishing of colleges the work with our students. We, Ukraine, are influencing the educational systems of Europe. We should stick to this. We have potential. Go global.
Thank you, esteemed colleagues. Everyone who's invited has something to say, and we understand that you have to say something which is more than for 3 minutes, but we have developed this instrument. There are recommendations. You can provide your amendments to that or comments. Please provide them in the written form to the text, I mean, of the recommendation. So please stick to the time frame, not to deprive those who want to say of the chance to say something. We've been talking about partnership, and now we would like to give the floor to our multi-year partner in English learning and in training English language teachers, the British Council in Ukraine, which is presented by Viktoria Ivanyshcheva today, the manager of the project. I would like to say that I'm not the only one here who represents the British Council. We have the Deputy Director, Natasha Vasiluk, and Jerry McIntosh, who's the head of the English language teaching project, and also independent expert who used to work in the British Council and who represents our interests wherever he is. First, I would like to say that this is a big honor for British Council to be the partner, together with the government of Ukraine, the Ministry of Education of Ukraine, the partner in this new initiative. We have always been trying to get the quality of language teaching at a high level, and we would always want to get optimum conditions for our students to be able to communicate freely with their colleagues, partners abroad. Oksana has mentioned about the big role of the teacher, and I would like to support her in that. If we think about what students we have, these are the students of the 21st century. The students who can think critically, who can together work on addressing some problems, the students which know all the IT technologies, those who can communicate in English with their friends. What we see from the side of the teacher is several steps behind the students. If we want to educate the teacher, the new generation, we need to introduce changes into the system of training of future teachers and the system of retraining of teachers. We now mentioned that the system of training teachers has the program developed according to the methodology. Now, what is the situation? Out of 100% hours for teachers training, only 45% are used for psychology, pedagogics, and only 3% for methods. If we think about the figures, what teacher can we be speaking about? The teacher that has no instrument to work in the classroom. All teachers who are here, just imagine, when you are in a classroom, you did not know what to do with these children. What did we start to do? What's happening now? The teachers are reading, the students are reading, translating, do grammar tasks. We are developing their knowledge in grammar. Knowledge of words, but we do not know how to put it all together to start speaking. So the focus in school, in the universities where they train the future teachers, they need to focus attention on practical use. We need to understand what to do further. It's easier to work with knowledge, it's more difficult to develop skills. What else I would like to say? In the universities, pedagogical universities, those professors who have never worked in schools are teaching methods. How can I, who has never made a single surgery, can teach others to make surgeries? And when students come to practice, to practical training, there are very few hours, and what they do there, well, I believe my colleagues would be able to say much more about that. What we need, the program which has been developed, is to be piloted. The bureaucracy, unfortunately, at the universities requires the decree to be issued, which would say that the program is to be piloted. That will lead to more number of hours a week. Now we have 20 hours, it needs to be 30 hours a week, and also we need to have more positions for those teachers who will be teaching methods. The next question is, what should be this? What is the specialization? Philology. We train philologists. Where do philologists work? They work as interpreters. Many of them go and work in schools or work in private schools, but they don't have the training of a teacher. That's a crime. Those people who do not know how to teach, they go and teach our students. We need to review it so that the training which is provided is pedagogical. I also would like to say, I'm sorry, just half a minute, on post-diploma training of teachers. Oksana Yaroslavna mentioned that there has been a program, a curricula of 80 hours. We don't have these hours in our institutes of advanced training, but not all the institutes are using this curricula. About 50% of them use their own curricula. They're not using what we have in ours. And I would like also to say a few words about professional frameworks of training teachers. This corresponds 6 levels, which corresponds to our Ukrainian classifier, and we want this framework to be included into the system of attestation of teachers. It's very transparent. it was tested in the regions, and this framework could be used only for those people who are attesting the teachers, so that this process is transparent. It's not that someone did something good and let's give him a higher category. Thank you. We do hope that there will be a very close cooperation in this project with the British Council, and I believe that we will be able to discuss all your proposals in detail, and this will be developed, and it's not during today's roundtable. Now we would like to invite a big friend of Ukraine, the ambassador of Canada, Vashchuk. Thank you. I am the ambassador. I do not know much about Ukrainian pedagogics. I will not be able to talk a lot. But first, I would like to confirm what Mr. Nayem said. In Canada, we do have volunteers who would be ready to come to Ukraine. But for that, the infrastructure is required so that the person has some support when he or she comes here. We have provincial governments in Western Canada which have experience in bilingual Ukrainian English teaching. So talking about curricula, about textbooks, that's like a reverse. Instead of Ukrainian language to Canada, English language to Ukraine. But these are people who have experience of communication between two worlds. And one more thing. It's about media space of Ukraine and reforming the media. But it's on motivation. Why should the people study the language? That's the policy on a show of foreign programs and films in Ukraine. A person who has Voda package, I know, when I click in the evening, every program that I get is in Russian pseudo translation. Till October, I worked in Serbia, the country where the economic indicators are not much different from Ukraine, but the level of active use of English is much higher, about 40%. And that is because they put subtitles, they do not dub the films. And it would be a good experiment for the public broadcasting of Ukraine to show interesting foreign films or some foreign content in the language of the original English or some other, but with Ukrainian subtitles. The only programs which are with subtitles are Russian language, and they're subtitled in Ukrainian, who knows for who. For students, for teachers, that would have been a great incentive to learn the language. May I add about subtitles? I do hope that you will help, all of you, because our initiative has it, but you would not believe it. Those who are opponents to that are those who say we will reduce this way the volume of Ukrainian product, subtitles. In Serbia, it was the case, and they started like that in many countries. Thank you, the ambassador. Today we've heard many proposals addressed to the post-diploma education institutions, and that's on advanced training of English language teachers. And I would like to invite the Rector of Post-Diploma Education University of Lviv. And just I would refer to only 3 positions in the document. It starts from the basic plan. The war has not finished, and our only chance is what Georgi said, the specialized schools as icebreakers. We now have to ensure equal chances, equal conditions, and selection. to specialized schools, we believe, is like an element of social injustice. So we probably need to try to expand the curricula which have been tested in specialized schools. We need to expand them to other schools. There is a problem with the teacher, but also item 4. In this second section, I would mention it's like maximum approaching of Ukrainian product to authenticity. We need to talk about cooperation. Ukrainian component here is important. I know examples when some boy opens the English textbook published by British and he says, oh, Olga Freymouth, he likes it. The Ukrainian component is important, but we need to attract the foreign specialists to that. There are many other things we can discuss, but maybe not today.
And after post-diploma education, we have Oksana Kovalenko today with us, and during 2 years he had developed a special course for trainers, and this course, unfortunately, it hasn't gained the systemic implementation. I think that the recognition and the confirmation of the international certificates in Oblast, it's not the problem. And I do not think that international seminars, workshops, and training events for teachers, we should not take it as a competition for us. Actually, this is assisting us. That's partnership. Nevertheless, I believe that post-diploma course for teachers should be implemented in full scale. So my main message is that to post-diploma education, to upgrading of teachers, we should involve as many partners as we can. And what is important, this is joint training of teachers, and between teachers, they should exchange with their experience and be able to learn lessons one from another. Dear colleagues, on the framework, I suggest to finish discussion about teachers and to give the floor to Mr. Oksana Kovalenko. And very briefly, please. Taking into account your huge experience, I will do my best. Today we already mentioned that the British Council and I myself, we contribute much, not just to post-diploma education, but also pre-diploma education. So designing our events, we quite often imagine an iceberg and try to understand what part of this iceberg you can see over the water level. Or maybe some 15%. All the rest you cannot see. You may teach the teachers how to manage pupils in the classroom, and while you should you should teach this teacher beliefs, values, and attitudes. That is the main ethic values and attitude to the language. And what is already forgotten, that the language is one of the means of communication, and this is the root of our main mistake. We teach children how to use grammar properly, how to apply words properly, but we do not teach them how to communicate between each other. And then attestation of teachers or control over the quality level. During the academic year, teachers have to participate in during courses, and what is important, they should not be trained by lectures, lecturing events, etc., but via reflecting. And unfortunately, that is what we never apply, but we should shift to this. I would like to invite to the microphone our very valuable partners, representative of the U.S. Embassy, Mr. McCoy.
Suppose it is, I'm the director of English language programs at the U.S. Embassy, and for years we have been running programs, summer camps for kids, online learning for disabled, many programs. And I suppose it's natural that in an initiative like this we begin to speak about the problems. But I'd just like to draw us back to the positive side of this and what Mr. Mustafa and Nayem has done here. This is a really exciting initiative which we greet with enthusiasm. It makes me easier to ask for our resources from Washington, because this is the 2016 is the year of English language and all foreign languages. I would like to make that point. And as well, in terms of teaching, one point, I've only been here for 8 months, but I can tell you that teachers are desperate for training. They are welcome to training, the kind of training that gives them practical tools that makes their lives easier. And when their lives are easier, it is infectious, and the students feel it, and they go home and want to continue learning by watching TV with subtitles in the original language. So, to sum up, to echo our partner at Peace Corps, we will follow the lead with our resources, and we're very excited about this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much for very brief presentation, but with very interesting point for us. Шановні колеги,
esteemed colleagues, I would like to shift to another interesting component of our discussion. This is about textbooks, and today we have already heard 2 different points about the textbook. That's why I would like to invite Ms. Oksana Kovalenko, who is author of the textbooks in English. Dear colleagues, I'm representing a team of authors of the textbooks. So all of us, we try to create up-to-date English textbooks, try to select best materials in line with socio-cultural, linguistic, and speaking requirements of our national program. Of course, these are students, teachers, and the parents to assess my work, but I was very lucky due to the British Embassy to finalize my studies and to become a graduate of the special course, and I learned a special course devoted to the opportunities to use IT and how they could be applied to English language learning. I would like to remind you that any successful activities are supported by high motivation, and learning, it is also an activity which should be successful, but to be successful it should be based on quality content. That is, creators of those content should think about raising motivation. One of the ways to raise motivation is to create not just a new textbook, but a kit of training materials. Not just audio component, audio CD for the textbook, but also multimedia kit for the textbook. That is what I tried to do. And in the context of our today's discussion, I would like to mention such an instrument of the European language policy as the All European Language Portfolio. Since late 2018, we tried to popularize this instrument among Ukrainian teachers, and in 5 oblasts of Ukraine, we implemented pilot projects, and the outcomes of the project, deliverables of this project should be taken into account, and I believe applied on the nationwide scale. Today I'm ready to represent a version of this portfolio for children aging from 7 to 11 years old, for teenagers from 12 to 14, and I'm ready to show the manual for teachers and methodologists and those who introduce this instrument to the language practice. Among your handouts, there is an information that all those instruments could be found in the internet with special links, and I encourage you to use them. Of course, I will give all these handouts to the organizers of this round table. Thank you, Oksana Dmitrievna. Since our time is coming to the end, probably now we will discuss the next component which we need to discuss today. The next component is an exam. And today we mentioned the full-fledged exam in English language. Our objective is to ensure such an exam for each school graduate. And this is an ambitious objective, but we believe we will be able to reach it. I would like to invite Mr. Likarchuk, Director of Ukrainian Institute for Assessment of the Quality of Education, and ask him a question about the prospects of such exams. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. I have 4 suggestions. Proposal number 1. Tomorrow, on June 10th, we are having the independent external test in English. We have 89,000 of graduates who expressed their wish to participate in it. Last year there were 69,000, and we obviously observe some growth, but this is only approximately 1/3 from the general number. We have registered 275,000 of graduates for external tests in general, while English language is required only in 1/3 of the institutes. And unless the exam in English language is a mandatory request from the university, the students won't have enough motivation. The second, my proposal is about the exam as it is. Of course, we have a big problem in our tests. This is the component checking competences, speaking competences, and auditing competences. But nevertheless, we have the test of high reliability degree, and we are very grateful to our British colleagues who checked it and confirmed that it is of high quality. But now we would request additional funding from the state budget for implementation of the project aimed at updating our English exams for school graduates. 3 years ago, it was possible to allocate some money for this. Ukrainian Institute is ready to improve and upgrade our external English exam under condition that we have sufficient funding. This is mainly a financial problem. The third aspect, we do not have much problems in differences in different regions when they pass exams. The major differences and the gap is between the rural and urban areas. We have big problems in English teaching in villages. And if we look at the results of the previous year exams, we see that there were only 4% of those children who have passed the exam with the 180 scores, while only 1.5% of those school graduates came from rural areas. That's why I believe that we should do something, either different curricula, either different organization of the learning process in urban, in rural areas. We should think carefully about village schools. The program school bus resulted in nothing. I understand we need additional funding for this, but children from villages, they should not be blamed. And I like very much Mr. Georgi's idea about icebreakers, but our specialized schools in many cases are just wall tables, and behind them there is nothing. 2 days ago, we had a French exam, and a lot of graduates from specialized French schools did not attend this exam. We need to analyze this data, but Unfortunately, there is nobody interested in carrying out such analysis. Neither Ministry of Education is not interested, nor schools, and this was my fourth recommendations. Thank you, Georgi Leonidovich, for very clear recommendations. Dear colleagues, I think that currently we have heard about the most systemic problems in educational system in Ukraine. This is unequal access to education. When we select 6-year-old children to specialized schools, and these children receive 1.5 times more state funds for education than children in ordinary schools. And if we set some priorities, speaking about foreign languages, we should provide the same equal opportunities for as many children as possible. We clearly understand that today well-being of a society depends on the well-being of the broad public. We should not hide behind some specific context. Let us recollect the experience of Finland and some other countries. They target the broad groups of children as a source of innovations for education.
Now I would like to give the floor to those who want to say something special to recommendations. Also, we have journalists here, and I would like to thank the journalists who are interested in the issue of foreign language learning. They can also ask questions. Does anyone insist on taking the floor? I represent a group of British publishers, and I would like to summarize our work. 8 publishing houses work in Ukraine. We have now changed. We have 3 generations of the textbooks now, and without that we cannot analyze the content of education. The teachers learned about the global world, about democratic values, such notion as tolerance, and that is all thanks to these textbooks. They became media knowledgeable and leadership skills, and that all comes via content of the textbooks. The new practices that we support by workshops, I believe we managed to develop the group. 15% of them are novators, and they push the reforms in their schools, and they managed to switch from teaching knowledge to teaching competences, and they managed to change the role of the teacher so that the teacher becomes consultant and the helper. And when we select the textbooks, we need to look at them as at the criteria. Another important issue is the school is the place where the digital and analog mentalities get together. We can create the virtual educational environment, and that is the opportunity via webinars, via other forms, via communication with the special schools to promote such technologies. And also not always many hours mean efficiency and high quality. When we say that in the external exams we have to have 2 levels of complication, B1 and B2, only then we can see whether the special schools achieve this level or not. And few recommendations. We need to look understand that the teachers participate in international competitions. They receive certificates. That will be a motivator. This way we will be promoting such people. We will be popularizing them. We work with parents a lot, explaining that these new technologies require from a teacher very serious work. People say that our textbooks are very expensive. British textbooks, they have 20% of GDP. In other countries of the world, it's 7% of GDP. Maybe it would be possible not to put that burden on parents. And one more thing, we need to look further. Those who, well, you say that we need to make so that in all CVs, the English is the mandatory requirement for all who will work. This will be view into the future. Thank you, Maryana, for your proposals. Esteemed colleagues, any questions? I am the photo correspondent. Many politicians, sportsmen, outstanding people, people from villages. Why have they achieved what they now have? Because from the childhood they know how to work hard. What we observe now in villages, many children don't have, compared to the municipal population, they don't have any notebooks. They don't have even the product which is to be there according to the curricula, to the program. But the average Kievite is interested in playing Angry Birds. But in the village, children cannot even think about that. For example, they have 2-3 textbooks in the classroom. I'm also from the village. When I was studying in 2002, I studied French. Your question. I will ask. When I studied, we were using the books of 96, 98. And for that, we need to go to the market in Kiev to buy them and to give them to each other. So how will the village education be supplied? The education in village, how will that be supplied? By very elementary things? Because my sister is in school now, she studies French. Okay, we have just 1 minute left. I will try somehow to react. Maybe one of you would like to answer. Obviously, that's not the subject of our today's roundtable, development of village schools, but that is the priority for us for the reform of education. For you to understand, 60% of schools in Ukraine are village schools, and the problem of small school, of village school, of the school in village, is ensuring infrastructure. That is one of the priority problems and the barrier for educated people about who we dream in our country. So the law on education is important. We will, I believe, and that is what Igor Likarchuk mentioned, we need to look at how to strengthen the village school via new information technologies, because we can integrate these schools only via information space. And so one of the parts of big reforms which would help us in learning English is covering by the internet all village schools. For that we need to cooperate with business. It would be great if large business companies who understand their social responsibility, if they can come up with the proposals to achieve such a coverage by wide band internet. Unfortunately, we have to close. Maybe some final words. Maybe Mustafa will wrap it up. First, Mustafa, thank you for all. I'm grateful that you have all come. I'm very inspired, because maybe I don't understand all the problems, but what we started to do, we had a meeting with the committee, with the Ministry of Education. We have developed some plans on the issues that we discussed on testing, and I would like to meet with you again. There's a proposal. We will send what we were discussing here. And secondly, I have a request. We will have an initiative group, and I will request you about meetings so that we develop very specific plans for each initiative. Maybe we will find some funding. Most of the issues are just organizational issues. There's funding, but also talking about legislative initiatives, the Ministry of Education, that's all important. So please, let us all together develop some specific plan. When I talk to the ministry, to Lilia, there are many plans, but we are talking, but we do not believe, but let us start believing that we will do it. I want in 3-5 years to remember this round table where everything has started. You insist. Do you insist? Thank you. Esteemed colleagues, I am from Vinnytsia, from specialized school, and thank you for this great round table. Our proposals almost coincide with what is there. One of the aspects that we did not mention, we are saying we're talking a lot about teacher, but let us think. If the teacher, what does the teacher receive as salary? 1,047 hryvnias of salary. That is important. But the problem is important, and thank you for this wonderful conference. Thank you. By the way, the new law on education has the correlation. The higher is the level of qualification, the higher is payment. And we even suggest the mechanism of independent certification. You pass the independent certification, you receive biggest salary, because it is impossible to raise salaries to everyone. So teachers of English can become pioneers. Taking into account that, I would like to thank you, and we invite you all to this working group, the working group which will be developing the specific plan and measures. And also please send us to the email of our committee all your ideas. Thank you.